Once I got the professional pictures back and I showed my husband, he was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you pulled this off.
How's it going, everybody? I am here with Allison, and I am so excited to introduce you all to Allison. The reason being is because she is the one who went through the property finder service first, outside of TechVestor, of course, right? TechVestor is the institutional client that nobody can relate to, but Allison here is a regular old individual who works a W-2 and is a mom of 2 kids, and Allison went through the property finder service. Now, when she went through the property finder service, it was not actually a service at the time. She had just reached out to me, we had got to know each other, and I helped her somewhat find a property. She did a lot of work herself as well. We'll talk about the details. Allison is here to speak to every single last one of you who has said, hey, I want to work with John, but he's only worked with an institution. And I want to work with somebody who's worked with an individual investor, right? And he can't relate. And are his numbers real, which is the one we get all the time. Like, the numbers he actually predicted, did they actually end up becoming real? And Allison is here to share her story with you guys. So Allison, I appreciate you for being here. Thank you so much. How's your day going?
It's going great, John.
All right.
Thank you for that introduction. You bring so much energy and I love it. I love talking to you, John. This is like the highlight of my day. Well, actually my week. But yeah, so like you said, I'm a parent. I'm a mom of 2 boys. I work a W-2. I've been at the same company now for 10 years and recently became a real estate investor. And I'm an owner operator of a short-term rental. And then recently in the last couple months, due to the success of that short-term rental, I started my own co-hosting business. Yeah. And that's actually taking off. And so things are moving and it's been really exciting.
Yeah. So appreciate you being here. We'll definitely plug your property management company at one point in this video, or it's going to be below. It's going to be somewhere. But Allison, so just to give you a little guys of a backstory, right? Allison reaches out to me randomly at one point and through an email, which I get quite often. And sometimes I can get to them and sometimes I can't. But I was able to get to you, and Allison reached out at the most optimal time ever because I had just finished creating the Bianchi method, which was the entire course that I was trying to at one point, provide to everybody. And now it's out there, and like 800 people or something like that have signed up for it. Mind you, a fraction have actually gone through it. But the point I'm trying to get at is that Allison reached out right at that time period. She was one of the first people to go through that. She provided a bunch of feedback on it. And then we became friends and we started talking and we started doing these sort of weekly calls with a couple of other people. And Allison was telling me about how she was trying to find a property and how much money she had and what she was planning on doing and where she was looking. So why don't you just talk, Allison, before we get to, by the way, everyone, we're going to talk about her actual numbers. And we have all of the proof, and we have the actual listing, what it looked like before and what it looks like now, how well it actually performed, what we thought it was going to make compared to what it actually ended up making. We're going to cover all that. But let's first start off with what you were trying to do, right? Like, you were trying to find a property. Talk a little bit about the pain points that you were going through when you were trying to find that property.
Yeah, like anybody. So, I'll start from the very beginning. At this time when I started like thinking about short-term rentals and wanting to get into that, I had just had my second boy, and you're going through that hamster wheel of rushing out the door, now I have 2 kids in daycare, and you're kind of tied to a desk at a cubicle, and you just think to yourself, am I going to do this for the next 10 to 20 years? And so that's why I really dove in to the short-term rental, Airbnb algorithm in the YouTube world, and just researched. That's when I found your content, and I just did a deep dive into it. And from there, I really fell in love with it. And also too, at that time, I looked into bigger pockets and everything because, again, I'm learning about real estate. Just like any newbie of real estate, they find bigger pockets. And so then I tell my husband, Jay's like, hey, have you heard of bigger pockets? And he's like, yeah, do you live under a rock? And so that's when I realized my husband he was interested in investing in real estate this entire time, but just didn't have the time or the energy really to go through it. And so that's when we decided, okay, I'm going to put forth the energy. I'm going to put forth the time and the dedication. And we both set an agreement on the amount of money that we would spend on this investment. So that's kind of how we got started.
So what I love about this too, and your story kind of hits on so many different people that we talk to, right? You're the mom, you're the W-2 employee. You went through my entire course, which is extremely long, right? It's extremely detailed. But on top of that, you also bought a course, right? Like, you were a person who was like, I'm gonna reach out to a coach and I'm going to buy a course. I don't want to spend a ton of time speaking about that because I think we all know how that goes, but just say your 2 cents on what your experience was with buying a course.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, when I first went on BiggerPockets, I went on the forums and I got approached, through the direct messages of a coach and a course. And as a newbie, fortunately I kind of fell for it kind of thing. And so I didn't vet the person. So I'm not saying coaching is bad. I actually just hired a business coach. So I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, like, to your listeners, like, vet that coach, really see what their track record is and kind of go from there. But really, my suggestion is to skip the whole coaching thing, because you can figure out hosting, hosting a property management. You can learn that on your own. You don't need somebody to hold your hand. But the one thing you cannot, what I found is finding a property that's going to cash flow an X amount of dollars per month. That's not easy to just figure out. So that's kind of what I found there. And that's my advice
So by the way, I'm not paying Allison to say any of this. So I wasn't expecting you to say that. I love it, but it's true, right? Like, I always tell people, if you get an Airbnb, you can figure out the management, because you can also screw up. You can screw up an entire person's trip, which you don't want to do. But if you screw that up, you can then figure it out and make it better for the next person. And then everyone else from there on out, you're good to go because you figured out your systems. But if you screw up the purchasing process and you buy that wrong property, you're screwed right from the get-go, because it's going to be really hard to get out of that property and you're going to lose a lot of money. But regardless, let's go to the next thing that happened here, right? The next thing was we started getting on these calls, and this isn't how it typically goes with people nowadays. Like, nowadays, we just kind of point them in the right direction. But you and I, we were working back and forth. But you had told me about what you were looking for, how much money you had to spend, what markets that you were open to. And you started looking into those markets, right? I kind of was like, oh, maybe kind of look over here. But then eventually I came across the property and I was like, hey, Allison, this one, like, you should buy. So tell people about your experience once I showed you that property.
Yes. So it's funny because, like John said, I had everything lined up. He helped me pick out a market, essentially, because I was looking in all the wrong places. I just want to say that to begin with. I was not looking in the right places. So once I figured out where I wanted and my price point, I got pre-approved, I got a realtor, I was ready to go. And so I already had the criteria on my Zillow. I was getting the emails. I was constantly looking every single day. And so when John pulls up this listing on Zillow, I thought to myself, I'm like, you got to be freaking kidding me, because I saw that listing and I wrote it off immediately. I said no. And so when he pulled it, I was like, gosh darn it.
You did that because it was ugly. Like,
it was an ugly house.
Yeah, let's show right now. We're going to be showing all the photos of that home. It was ugly. It's like outside, no good, huge driveway path to it. The interior had nothing going for it. The kitchen had nothing going for it, right?
Yep.
And
it was like this big yellow ugly house, orange walls, ugly furniture, terrible photos, a really messed up backyard, like in terms of cleanliness. It wasn't really kept well. But John saw the bones of the house. He saw it had, one, I'm just going to point out the obvious things, that it had a brand new roof. It had a brand new pavement. It had a brand new deck. And the deck space was massive, and it had an awesome backyard. And the biggest thing about this house was the location that I totally missed. It was walking distance to a beach. And it's like, you're
not a beach, the beach. Like, the whole area. It was. So to me, when I looked at it, I was like, that's a really good price. That's a good amount of bedroom. That's a really big living room. That's a big deck. Holy crap, it's walking distance to the beach. I thought it was on the beach, like right next to the beach, but it's just literally a trail that's in the backyard you go through and you're at the main beach. That's like right there. And then on top of that, it had a huge driveway. I'm like, ooh, you could definitely do stuff with that. Still had enough flat space in the back. And it was so cheap. And I was like, that is ugly as hell, but I'm like, you make it look pretty. And let's actually right now just show off how beautiful the property is now. So somebody is, the editor right now is showing the property, how beautiful it is. I love to show off the game room, which is like very, very well done. You did use somebody that we recommended, which is what we do with the service as well, right? We point people in the right direction of like who's good, who's not good. So let's show off the back deck. We both know what it looks like in our mind, but we're showing it to everybody else right now, which is really, really nice. And then, the whole property is just beautiful now, right? And the way you put it together. And if we look at that drone shot as well with the hanging lights and like you can see the water in the distance. Oh, I love it. I love what you did with the property.
It turned out fantastic. And I got to tell you too, to kind of bring full circle, like once that property, once I got the professional pictures back and I showed my husband, he was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you pulled this off. Because in the beginning, my biggest pain point, and I'll say this right now real quick, was my number one thing was confidence and the lack thereof. Of just not having that gut feeling, or just making sure I'm buying the right property, and going from there. So I would kind of be, hard on myself. And Jason's like, just hit a base hit. You don't need to hit a home run. And so, but I was like, but I want to hit a home run.
Yeah,
and so that's why I got with John.
Yeah. I'm also just realizing or learning on this video that you didn't know what Bigger Pockets was until you started looking into it.
I had no idea.
You went from no idea what Bigger Pockets is to the point of having the property that we just showed everybody. But let's get to the more fun stuff, which is the actual numbers, right? Mm-hmm. And this is what I find the most fun, right? If we can, because normally I would do the projection, right? Let's put it this way. I told you what I thought that property was going to make because I know the market really, really well. And I said, hey, it's going to make this much, right? And then you went and you did your analysis because I was training you on teaching you how to do that analysis. And what number did you come up with?
So I came up with my 100% confidence was 115,000.
Yeah, by going through that entire, and I said 120 is where I thought that property was going to fall based off of if you did X, Y, and Z, right? Yep. And now you've been running the property for how long? So
it's been in operation for 6 full months.
How much do you have booked so far? Like, share all the numbers, however you want to share the numbers. Go into it.
No, you're fine. So right now I've recognized revenue. So 75,000 of revenue that in 6 months. So that's $3,500 a month cash flow after, because my expenses are, I have like almost a 9% interest rate. You got to remember I locked in. It was like, 8.625. Sorry. Jeez. Yeah, 8.625 for my interest rate. And so
I didn't know that, but woo.
Right. And I bought the property at 370, 8.625 interest rate. And then I got my operating expenses. And since I'm, managing this out of state, I don't take a profit on my cleaning revenue because I have a cleaning and maintenance team. So they're really my boots on the ground. So I'm willing to pay them a premium and take a little bit of a loss in my operating costs. So even with that, I'm still cash flowing $3,500 a month. And so, which is pretty wild.
Which is beautiful. Because that's what we tell people. Like, if you're not cash flowing somewhere over $2,000 a month, then let us find you a property that's going to cash flow over $2,000 a month. Now, mind you, let's show your entire breakdown right now because you're kind enough to be able to share that. The entire spreadsheet, which shows all the different operating expenses that you have and what the actual revenue was. You can clearly see in the first couple of months, there was additional money that needed to go out to additional services. You can pause the video right now and review this in depth if you really want to. Allison, you said that you're making $3,500 a month in profit, but realistically, the majority of that came through in the summer, right? So you made, what was it, like 9,000 and 8,000 in profit, right?
Yeah, in profit.
Just for those 2 months, which is wild.
Yeah, in July and August, I cash flowed about 8,000 both months. And the reason June, I left money on the table in June. I messed up on pricing. I gave somebody a discount. So I did all those things. I made some rookie mistakes, but overall the spread for if you just take the average over the 6 months, averaging $3,500 a month. So because there was 1 month that I was in negative, and that's just because of all the repairs and all those things. And you will find that as like a new homeowner, things come up right when you start operating.
The next year, you'll cash flow around 4,000. Better pricing, better structure, everything, right?
Yeah,
and potentially even bringing down your interest rate on there as well. But the thing is that, so 75,000 within the first 6 months, right? How much do you have booked for the rest of the time period as well?
So the spreadsheet I gave you is just a little over 25,000. I just got another booking. So I'm around 27,000 on the books for future. So, and that's through, like 2 weekends in January, and I still have December pretty open. So I'm already at a little over 100,000, and my projection was 115. And knowing that December is pretty open, November is open, January's open, February's open. All these months are still open, and my weekends get booked.
We're talking leaves changing, holidays, snowboarding. Yep. So it's not like you're going into slow season. You're going into like a pretty good season to make a good amount of money. So like the reality is you're going to do without a doubt better than 115.
I agree. I hope so.
Yeah.
And I know I will.
This is what everyone has been asking for, right? Everyone's like, is there anyone other than TechVestor that you've worked with long enough to be able to actually say how much the property is going to make? Apparently, being able to get it right with TechVestor over 150 times is not enough. They need an individual who's operating it as an individual to be able to see how well they're doing, which I totally understand, because like TechVestor level people, we're just not like the average, like yourself, who didn't even know what Bigger Pockets was in a year and a half ago, right?
Yeah.
Or however long that was. So that's the idea, right? So you didn't know, I just keep bringing that up. You didn't know Bigger Pockets that long ago. And now you're sitting on a property that you bought for 370. It's going to do over 120. And that's with, giving discounts and not operating it properly. You're cash flowing over $3,500 a month. And I pointed you at that property, right? Like that's what I do best, is I identify these properties in these markets, in these areas that perform really well, and be like, hey, that's the property you want to get, and that's how you want to put together. And luckily we were able to line you up with Diana as well, who was able to put it together so well, right?
Yes, Diana was a huge key player in the design, and she also went to the property when I had some contractors there, and so she really helped facilitate a lot of things in terms of the backyard. I had a contractor starting some work, and he was doing it wrong, and she stopped him and told him, hey, you need to do it like this, and it turned out to be awesome. I'm so happy, that you connected me with her, honestly. And so, and there was something else I wanted to say too, but
that's okay. I got something else I want to say, which is that you guys may not know this. You talked about your husband and looking into this and whatnot, but your husband said at one point that, he wasn't sure about this, and you almost had to prove yourself to your husband, right? Can you kind of walk everyone through that story? Because I love this so much, because you told me it like well over a year ago, and now here we are with all the proof and being like, yeah, we got that home run. So
we did. Yeah. No, I'm happy to. So yeah, like Jason and I, and I just want to say this, like we have, we have a great marriage. Okay. I don't want people to think, we have
That's not what I was saying at all. Yeah.
But I will say that we did have some disagreements, and I think people will relate to this because, husband and wife, they may not, totally agree on certain investment strategies and things like that. And we were dealing with a pretty big lump sum of money. And to us, $100,000 was a lot of money. I mean, we don't come from a rich family. We've worked the last 10, 15 years to save up to this point. And so, Jason and I, we butt heads a little bit because I was so gun-ho on this short-term rental route, and I had to do a lot of convincing. And because of that, because he made it a little bit more difficult for me, I had to really prove myself of learning. So I really became like a professional student in this, which is why I binge watched all your stuff, which is why I contacted you. I think I wanted validation from you, to be honest. And so because I wasn't getting it from him. And so which is, again, and it also leads back to my main pain point of confidence. I reached out to you because I wasn't sure. I'm like, am I doing this right? Like, there was always that sense of questioning. Right. So when him and I were kind of butting heads, there was a moment where we would kind of get in an argument. I would go out into the garage and do a workout. I got so mad one day that I had my car parked there. I got so mad that I actually kicked my car and I put a big old dent in it. And so I know.
I think people are relating to this story, by the way. So this is my first time hearing this.
I know, right? I know. I wanted to tell you this one because it's very real. And so, but yeah, little old Allison, who's all happy and goofy, right? I got pissed, and I just because I was like, he was just making things a little bit more difficult for me. And so, but at the end of the day, it was actually a blessing in disguise because I worked my ass off. And then, so yes, I'm just an individual. I'm working a full-time job. I have 2 little kids, and I was doing this all out of state. So, and I somehow was connected to the right people because of you, John. And so, and also to, reach out to people in the area that I was in and interviewing people and just being all in on this, and really paid off. So that's kind of the story on that.
I love that so much. I'm so happy that I was able to point you in the right direction so that you could just prove him wrong.
I did. I proved him wrong. And he'll say that today. You definitely proved me wrong. He shows all of his coworkers and he's very proud of me. And he posted on Facebook, he did the whole thing. He's very happy about everything. And anyway, and I'm obviously very happy about everything too, because I knew in my gut, I just knew it would happen. So.
And I think it's also very relatable to anybody who may be watching this, because there's a lot of people who are in marriages and relationships where maybe they don't see eye to eye, and bringing in a professional to be like, hey guys, like this is what's going to happen, and bringing that confidence to both sides of the table, because one person will be overexcited and one person has to be skeptical, and that kind of combination definitely helps. It's the yin and the yang to be able to poke holes. Instead of two people being excited, then you buy whatever you first see and just hope it works out, right? Like, because you showed me multiple properties where I was like, do not buy that, whatever you do. And you're like, but I was like, like, no, don't buy it.
I'm
right?
so happy.
Yeah.
Because
like it could have, I mean, it makes me really, really, really happy that it worked out the way it worked out, right? I'm so happy that you didn't buy a property, that it didn't work out, and he was proved right, you know? And now all of a sudden you guys have an additional $3,500 a month in income, right? And you so many other things, such as your property management company that has come out of it, and potentially being able to get out of being behind the desk and being able to be with your kids. I was laying on the ground with my newborn right before hopping on this call, and I'm so happy to be a part of this world because I could do that, right? And so to be able to kind of guide you in the ability to do that as well, that's beautiful to me. So very, very happy that it worked out. This is what I do. This is I know how to do it, and I'm glad I was able to do it for you. To anybody else who's listening to this, what's sort of the last little bit of advice that you would give them if they're trying to make the decision if they should work with us or not?
Honestly, the biggest advice is, yes, you want to hire a professional in this. I kind of compare it to, I'm going to be kind of silly here for a second, because I got LASIK eye surgery. And so when you're like doing any kind of surgery, are you going to like hire somebody who just got out of school, but they're a professional at school, and or you're going to hire somebody that did 70,000 clients already to work on your eyes, kind of thing. I chose the guy that has done this over 70,000 times. So that's how I kind of looked into this is, okay, I know I'm not the professional in this, and I know it would be worth every penny to hire that person to help me so I don't make the wrong decisions, and it will make the process so much easier. I made my life a little harder in the very beginning, but yeah, if I had to do it all over again, I would. Yeah, I mean, obviously I used you, John, but you know what I mean? Like if I had to tell a friend, like, just go straight to John. You don't need to hire a coach. Sorry. But if you do, make sure the coach, refers John.
And we work with a lot of coaches. So
that's awesome. Yeah.
We're integrated with them, right? It's like, let us find you the property, then help them build their business or build their Airbnbs or whatever it is, right?
Yes.
Their portfolio. Sorry, operations is the word I was going for there. Help them build their operations and co-hosting businesses, but like, let us find them the property. Anyways, Allison, I appreciate you so much. We just went back and forth for a solid 25 minutes there.
Good.
And I think that people will love your story. I love your story. I got to even learn more about your story right now. So this is great. Again, guys, Allison is technically the first person to go through the property finder service outside of TechVestor. If you don't want to use TechVestor as a reference, you've got Allison here. And Allison, I appreciate you to the day you die. So thank you so much for everything. And I'll see you later.
All right. Thank you, John.